Hi, this is Kathi Quinn with Floriani. Floriani is a division of R&K Distributing, and I want to welcome you to this week's Project of the Week. Well, I wanted to apologize. For 2 weeks ago, I taught you about texture. It was an excellent lesson, and it's a very important thing to understand in our software when you change the size of a pattern, how to make sure you've held the integrity of the stitch length. I'm going to come up here. I'm going to just grab an artwork shape, hold down my left mouse key, draw a square, and I'm going to come to my bottom one-click wonders, and I'm going to turn this into a motif fill. What I showed you was that if you change the pattern size, you also needed to make sure that you put in a stitch length for the new pattern size and apply it. And that way you would make sure that your stitches were being dropped every 4/10 of a millimeter like they should, which is great and you need to know. However, I did not realize that if you're trying to do this exercise, you're very frustrated because you do not have this feature, because this is one of the upcoming features that you're going to be receiving at the end of the month in our free update. I did not realize it was not in your software already. So I apologize if I caused any frustration because you couldn't find the pattern size within your properties box. You're not crazy, you're not doing it wrong. It is not there, but it will be. So look forward. At the end of the month, you're going to have a brand new Floriani free update with all kinds of new fun things. Also, I've had questions about seeing these icons that you do not have. These are also upcoming features that you will be seeing. Now, we've talked about word art, so you'd know that it's coming, what you've got. We've talked about word art some. We have not talked about You Design It, but it is a feature that will be coming. So let's get to this week's lesson. This week, I just want to talk about some of the editing options. So again, I'm going to come up to my artwork tool up here at the top, and I'm going to select a shape. Doesn't matter what my shape is. Let's get something besides a rectangle. And I'm going to just hold down my left mouse key and draw a shape on screen. Now this shape is artwork. We know that because our properties box tells us so. It says we're working with artwork. I've got a couple of options. I can fill in my artwork. I can change the pin width. So filling it in would make it solid. It would still react the same if I wanted to make this a run stitch. The fact that it was filled in wouldn't change anything. It would still just be a run. Undo is my friend. It just is the visual. Now also, I'm going to take that fill off and apply. We have a pin width. You know, by the time we can afford this stuff, we can't see. So sometimes we need to make our pin width wider just so we can see it better. Now this will not change the size of my object. I'm going to put my pin width back to 0. Let's go to the word transform, and now I can tell it I want the width on this to be 5 inches. I'm going to apply. Let's come up to our center, our zoom box, and fit this to screen. Now let's change our pin width. Let's make our pin width about 5 millimeters. Apply. Now let's go back to transform. See, it did not change the size of my object. It's also not going to have any effect on how the stitches are. It's not going to mean if I turn this into a satin, is this going to be the width of it? This is just the artwork being able to see it better. Now when we work with artwork, a lot of times if you're going to do something, want to change the shape or anything, change the artwork prior to turning it into stitches. Now you can edit once you turn to stitches, but I highly recommend let's work with the artwork first, and I'll show you some cool things. Now when you've got your artwork selected, the tool we're going to be interested in is our shape tool. Now our shape tool is going to work with it whether it's artwork or stitches, but you're going to have different features, different options when it's artwork versus a stitch design, a design that has stitches in it. So what are those features? Well, I'm going to go ahead. I've got my shape tool that we're going to talk about, our editing our path. We've got our slice tool. Now this is specific to artwork. You cannot slice designs. You can only slice artwork. And our add an outline tool. So right now let's look at our edit path. Now the minute I selected that, you're going to see you've got your control points, your boxes, that when this artwork was created, it was a click here, a click here, a click here. You get the idea. You can see exactly where they clicked to create this artwork. The problem is with this wide pin width, it's hard to see. So let's come over here and go back to 0 and apply so we can see that very easily. Now what this does is, notice when my cursor gets close to one of these points, it turns blue. It says, Kathy, you're close enough for me to grab it. Now I'm going to hold down my left mouse key and drag. See, I can change the shape of my object by selecting my shape tool, and then I can work with my control points. So I can come in here and move these, change these. Now, what if I want to do something here? What if I wanted to round this off? I don't have a control point. All I need to do is put my cursor on it, right mouse click, and add a point. Once I add a point, now it's added a point in here. So I can come in here and I can change the shape by adding points, so I can change the shape in different places. So I can add a point here. So now I can start with one shape that I might just a beginning shape, because I can't draw, but I can certainly manipulate. So I always say I'm a great manipulator. So you see, I can come in here, and I started out with what, a hexagon, and I've managed to manipulate that into a little heart shape. And you can continue to play, add points, do whatever you need to do to create those shapes. Now this is my artwork, so I'm still just working with artwork. As you can see, if I look here, it's still telling me, Kathy, you're working with artwork. So that's what I've done. Now let's look what else we can do to this artwork. Let's come back to our shape tool. Sorry, I have to select it. If it's not selected, the tool isn't available. Let's come back to our shape tool here, and I'm going to grab my knife. Now what if I wanted to slice this heart? Let's come over here. Oh, didn't want to do that. Backspace. Now that I've sliced that, I'm going to right mouse click. Let's right mouse click. There it is. I right mouse click, and that made that happen. So now if I grab this, select this, I've now got two pieces of my heart. I sliced it in half. So now I could digitize to two half hearts. Of course, you might be a little better artist than I am, but you understand what can be done. Now if I come out here and look at our last option, which is I can create an outline. That means I can manually come in here and create a line around here, whatever I want to do. And of course when I right mouse click, that becomes stitches. So now let's look at what we've got. I didn't right mouse click good enough to make it can become stitches. I turn a program on my computer so I can draw for you, which is this pen, which sometimes makes my right mouse click a little bit more difficult to work with than yours. Let's go ahead back to this add an outline. Just simply doing a series of left mouse clicks. When I'm ready to turn that into a stitch, oh, come on. There, did it do it? I think it did it that time. There, it did it. So by right mouse clicking, I went ahead and created an outline. So that's what I can do with this tool when I'm working with artwork. So let's grab this piece. Let's go ahead and with this piece of artwork, let's grab our artwork here. I'm going to grab this one. I'm going to change the color on it. There we go. Now I'm going to turn this into a fill. So now this is a fill. Just a regular old fill stitch. Let's make it a more pleasant color. There we go. Let's have a, there we go. Okay, so we have filled this. Now let's look at this same tool here. Now again, let's look at what our control points do. Now here are my control points, so I could change the shape. So that's the shape. Now here is my green is for start, red is for stop, so this is where my design would start and stop. And then you have a line with two black circles on it. This is your inclination or your angles. So these are the things I can do within a fill. Now I've moved these things, but you notice it hasn't filled in or anything because until I put my cursor out here and right mouse click, it's not real. I haven't affected the change until I've done that. So you look at your shape tool and the options have changed. You notice there was no slice. But you notice before on artwork I can't change an inclination line because I don't have any stitches. So the angle line doesn't make any difference. Now the other thing we always want to look at when we're working with some artwork here, so let's get some artwork. Let me just go ahead and draw us another little shape here. Well, I didn't want a circle. I don't want a circle because I want to show you something specific. Let's get, here we go. There we go. Now with this artwork here, I'm going to go ahead and turn this into a run stitch. So with it selected, I'm going to come down and grab my run. Now anytime you're creating, you always want to think about how this is going to stitch out and how it's going to work. So let's look at it. Let's look at our shape tool. Now this one happened to do just great. My start and stop are in the same place, so when I come here, it's going to draw around one time and stop because I have single run. But sometimes what happens when we do this, let's go ahead and get a new piece of paper. And let's get a custom shape. And let's do this. And you know what? I'm going to slice this in half too. Let's go ahead and slice this. So I've got two halves. Okay, so we've sliced it. One color and one another. Okay, now I'm going to turn this into stitches. I'm just going to turn it into a run, and I'm going to look at my shape tool on that. It's a run stitch. Well, this is really interesting. Oh, because I didn't pick the one I turned into stitches. There you go. Did I turn either one of them into stitches? No. Well, let's come down here. Let's select these items and let's make them a run stitch. So now we have them in a run stitch. So let's go to our shape tool. And you can see here is my stop and here's my start. So let's see how this is going to work. Now it's going to start there, come up, come down, and it's going to run all the way back around to that stop. So that's not efficient. Let's look at how our bottom one's running. Let's grab the bottom one. Let's look at it. Now see, it's going to start and stop right here, so that's not going to be a problem. So what it did is it made it start closest point of connect, but I don't want it to stop up here. I want it to stop down here too, because I just want it to run around one time. Now when I move that, remember I've got a right mouse click out here outside to make that real, so that the software knows I wasn't just kidding. So now let's look. Perfect. Everything just did a nice single run. So when you're doing shapes and you're doing maybe a basting, maybe you're putting a square basting for the hoop or whatever, check your start and stop point so it just doesn't keep running around unless you want more than one run. Then you would come in here and say, look, I want you to be a double run or a bean. So you could go through there if you wanted more than one run, but you want it to run the most efficient way possible. So we've kind of looked a little bit at how to play with artwork, how to edit artwork, looked at the difference in editing artwork versus editing a shape. Now let's talk a little bit about saving it. If I want to save this, I'm going to say File, Save As, and then I'm going to save it whatever I want to name it, everything. Now always save your designs first as a WAF. That's a working file. It's really not a stitch file. It's a pure information file. Then if you want to come back and you want to edit this, it makes it very easy. Now I'm going to go to the desktop and I'm going to create a new folder and I'm going to call this Edit. And I'm going to save this design in the edit box, and I'm going to save it as a WAF file. So it is saved there. So if I open, you can see in my edit folder I have this WAF file. Now this isn't going to stitch out on a machine. We already know that because it's just a WAF file is only information. So I need this to stitch out on my machine. But what if I have more than one machine, or more than one brand? If I just had one, I would say File, Save As, and then I would drop down and I would pick my machine's format. But if I have more than one machine, I might want to do it all at once. So I would go to Tools and I would go to Batch Converter. Now I would first of all, I'd say, where's the folder? Well, the folder is on my desktop and it's the folder called Edit right here. That's the folder we just made. So okay, so now I've changed this to the Edit folder. Now I want to save, when I do this, I want to save the converted designs, my multi-formatted designs. I want to save them in the same folder, in the source folder. And I'm going to put overwrite existing files. In case I accidentally already had one file, I don't want two of the same thing. Now in my source file, I want to take the WAF files. Of course, that's all I have in there right now. And I want to convert that to a baby lock. I also have a Genome in there. I want to come down for the Bernina. And I've got an Epic in the room right now. So that way I can take this design and I can go ahead and say Start, and it has converted that WAF file to a PES, a JEF, an EXP, and a VP3. And I did it with one mouse click. I didn't have to go through and say File, Save As, and go to the folder. So let's open that folder now. Now I have my WAF file, my VP3, my PES, my JEF, and my EXP. So I have all my files here so I can stitch them out on my machine. So easy. Create your design, edit your artwork first, then turn it into stitches. But no, you can always edit your stitches as well. And then you can go ahead and save it in the WAF format and then save it to all the formats you need. I hope you enjoyed this week's lesson. I hope you learned a lot of stuff, and I look forward to seeing you again next week.